Hello, everybody. So, today, as you could see, I wanted to talk not as much about an instrument, but about a certain technique or a way of playing, and of course, about brushes. Why? Well, because I used them already, I think total of 2 times. Yeah, that's a lot. But still decided to make a video nonetheless, because I think this is a bit maybe overlooked technique in the general percussion world. So I thought, hey, why not record a video about it? So, of course, a bit of history. Well, brushes started as a drum kit part, actually. Part. Not part per se, but as a replacement for drumsticks. You see, back in the times when drum kits were beginning to take shape, it was around 1920s, there was still no, how to call it, audio systems, obviously, in the venues. So basically, the band's mix was about as much as natural volume of each instrument. And with the drum kit now present, bands mostly switched from being street bands you could see in the very old photos, for example, to more venue restaurant style of playing. Obviously, this showed a lot of difficulties because suddenly drums, who are not so monstrous while in the open air, when when the sound does not clash around the walls and reflects back. Now, drum kit was a monster. It was basically droning out all the other instruments, especially double bass. So they had to come up with a solution to this problem. The first proposed issue was, of course, to push drummer as much in the back or to the corner as possible, but that was still not working. So someone came to a point when they invented those little thingies, and drummers were meant to play with those. And obviously the difference is volume is massive. You could absolutely use brushes on a regular acoustic drum kit, even in a block of flats or other tight-packed venue, and I guarantee you the neighbors won't even know you're playing. They are super quiet. I mean, of course, unless you really smash with, here the place when the brush meet the stick, let's say, but let's face it, this counts as more of a stick than a brush. So yeah, problem solved. The brushes became very prominent in jazz from that moment on. I mean, obviously, they didn't took over the sticks completely. That's not what I'm meaning to say. I just wanted to show that this was the time when they were invented, how they were invented, and for what purpose. Obviously, when the era of big bands started later on, and we have jazz virtuosos, they are playing with the sticks, but notice they're playing concert halls or bigger venues in general. This is not a cafe, restaurant, or club setting. In these smaller places, brushes still dominate. And also brushes, due to how you play with them, because as you noticed in this short demo solo, whatever, on a cajon, you don't necessarily just strike with them. You quite literally brush the surface of the drum. That's how you use them. And this what I showed you here is basically how you use them on a snare drum, and this is how you mostly see them in use today. Drummers played on a snare drum mostly, well, because obviously this is the main drum of a drum kit, but use it way differently than sticks, because when you're playing with regular sticks, you usually hold your dominant hand somewhere on the cymbal, and you play on the snare just with your non-dominant hand. Here, you play both hands on snare. Of course, you can see the jazz drummers going traditional way and brushing just with one hand. And, well, for example, sounds like this. So absolutely you can do this, but from what I've seen, most of the time you go both hands on a snare. And, well, as I mentioned, you quite literally brush the surface of the drum. I mostly seen two patterns. One is going circular with either one or both hands, like this, and you just strike on the accent. I quite often add the swing part you would normally play on a cymbal to this. Or I also saw this double crescent pattern. I don't really know the name. Basically, you start not with brushes one next to another, but one above the other, and you just do this half circles. This is great for more dynamic or fast playing. And I usually try to, give the accent either in one of the stopping positions, either on top or on the bottom. But, brushes also open up a lot of possibilities that you cannot do with anything else, just because of their structure. For example, one of my favorite patterns and stuff to do as more of an effect is to quite literally just, brush the drum very fast. Yeah, and like I said, brushes do show up occasionally in a percussion world. However, from what I've seen, this is mostly a domain of timbales and Latin instruments in general that are very similar to your average drum kit drum in the first place. This is, for example, how I used them in my cover of Santana's Smooth, when I used my good old frame drum as a replacement for timpani, or timbale actually, sorry, because, obviously, in my environment, I won't be able to really fully play on a timbale anyway. So I figured that frame drum sounds close enough, and I just used this as a replacement. So it sounded like this, playing a more march-like pattern. But overall, as you can see, I usually do brushes on my cajon and on the frame drum because they sound most similar to a snare. The cajon is like a snare, with wires on, and the frame drum is as a snare with wires off, or as a timbale. And the same techniques I showed you on the cajon, you can absolutely recreate on a frame drum, but they will sound a bit different. Also, yes, this is another thing you can do to spice up your brush playing. When you do an accent, don't hit, just do this very quick flick. This is actually one advantage frame drum has over the cajon, the fact that it actually has a drum head, so the surface is more coarse, has more structure, more texture, so the brushes can really shine here. It resembles more drum head of a snare drum than just a smooth flat board of a cajon. However, well, the cajon has the springs, so on the other hand, it also has an advantage to sound a bit like a snare drum, more than just a frame drum. Yeah, what I really like about the brushes on the percussion is that it really opens up a lot of possibilities. And this is completely different playing than what you do on drumsticks. Believe me, you have to learn separately to play brushes than you do with drumsticks. I mean, they are kind of intuitive, not gonna lie, especially if you see someone playing it, you will be able to pick them up and play, given you have some experience. But still, if you wanna be good, you have to practice just as much. This is another separate instrument, really, or maybe a way of playing. I would maybe compare it to, different types of guitars that you have. When you have electric, acoustic, or classic. The classical guitar is the percussion here. The acoustic guitar is the brush, and the electric guitar is the drum kit. When you are proficient on one, you, of course, will be able to get around on the others, but if you really want to get really good, you have to practice each separately. And, with this advice, I wish you all happy playing. Go grab brushes. They aren't much monetarily cost, and they will expand your sound palette a lot. So go ahead, experiment, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.